going to discuss cause and effect as our reading comprehension skill that we are practicing. And really, cause and effect is just like, gosh, that's like life. Everything that you do or everything that happens causes something else to happen because we are all connected, right?
Like the food chain.
Like the food chain, exactly. So last week we did cause and effect with the second graders, and they brought up the whole, like, you know, when the asteroid hit the Earth millions of years ago, and that caused the big cloud of dust. And we don't know for sure if this is how it happens, but this is like the scientists' best guess. Which caused all the dust up into the atmosphere, which then kind of blocked out the sun, which then caused the plants to die, which then caused the herbivore dinosaurs to die, which then caused the carnivorous dinosaurs to die. And there you go. And then boom, dinosaurs were extinct. And I think that the only animals that survived during that time were like the bottom feeding animals that were able to eat, like they ate rotting food. Some animals eat that. So something can happen and set off, we call it like this chain of events, you know, in the food chain, as this connection is part of that. So when you have, like, I know we talked about that, like when what was that? In that summer class, you were in that, Charlotte. Remember when that summer class we talked about, like, yeah, we did those environmental things and we talked about like the food chain, if, you know.
And the city pollution,
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
If something happens to the plant life or to one of the animals, then
it was the fish.
It was the fish, right? Yeah, the fish were dying, and so then there wasn't food for other animals, and the fish weren't eating like the algae, and so it was overgrown in the pond. And I mean, it just was like affected all these things.
And
So
we talked about the deer, like how too many deer, if they were there, then they'd eat all the plants and it would cause the food chain to collapse.
right. So everything's kind of in this like balance with each other. You know, at certain times there might be more population of something, but then, you know, something else then has more food, and, you know, things have a way of balancing and working itself out. Nature is really good about that. But if you look at your like own life, consequences are like another word for cause and effect. And you can have positive consequences, not just negative consequences, but usually we think of negative consequences, like if you do something you're not supposed to, you get in trouble, and maybe you don't get to do something fun that you wanted to do. So in our story, hold on, let me bring up. So this is the graphic organizer we're going to use. It's pretty straightforward. I'll show it to you real quick. Cause and the effect, cause and the effect, cause and the effect. And sorry, I have to log back into this. All right. Sorry. Almost ready.
Savannah left.
Oh, I don't see her back in yet. Might be her internet. I'll ask her if she needs a. All right, cause and effect. Here we go. All right, well, Selena, are you there? Selena? I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, we're all on here. All right, there's Savannah. Okay, cool. All right, Savannah, if you get kicked out, I'm sharing my screen. And so just, can you hear me? Just text Selena and Selena can let me know. Okay? And I assume you hear me. Okay, cool. All right. Cause and effect. Everybody see my screen? All right. So reading along with me. Bats and their amazing ears. Imagine what it would be like to use your ears to find your dinner. This is what most bats have to do. These bats are different from most animals because they use sound to find food. Bats make sounds people can't hear. The sounds hit things around the bats. Then the sounds bounce back to them as echoes. They find food by listening to the echoes. The bats can even hear echoes from tiny insects. They follow the echoes to catch the insects. Third paragraph. The echoes also help bats fly at night. They can tell the difference between echoes from trees and echoes from the insects they eat. Since the echoes show where things are, bats do not fly into things. They use their ears the way most people use their eyes. And they didn't say what this is called, but does anybody know what this process of what the bats and the echoes using to find their way? It's called, it has a specific name.
I know what it is, except I forgot it.
That's called echolocation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they're able to like basically hear where they are because of the echoes, because the sound bounces. So it's like almost like they can hear, or I mean, they can see these echoes. All right. So cause and effect. I don't know if I'd, so because they use sound to find food, bats make sounds people can't hear. The sounds hit things around the bats. So I've wondered that when you see the bats flying around, you don't really hear them. The sounds bounce back to them as echoes. So we can say,
There was a bat in my parents' room once.
oh my.
It flew in through the window. They left it open. I think I'm not sure because I was asleep, but they told me.
The sound bounces back. And how did it say? Bounces back as echoes. Bats make sounds. The effect is the sound bounces back as echoes. So because the bats can hear echoes from tiny insects, they're able to follow the echoes and catch the insects. So because they can hear the tiny insects, they're able to find the tiny insects and eat them. That's there. I don't know why it's doing that. There you go. Okay. And then let's see if anything in the third paragraph. The echoes also help bats fly at night. They can tell the difference between echoes from trees and echoes from the insects they eat. Since the echoes show where things are, bats do not fly into things. They use their ears the way most people use their eyes. Anything else we want to add? We can make it stretch if we wanted to. I don't know. I'm not so impressed with this reading passage for cause and effect, but meh. Let's see if the next one is a little bit better. A better running shoe. Everybody see? All right, following along with me. In the past, running shoes didn't protect runners' feet very well. So shoe companies worked to solve the problem. They got an idea from a surprising place. Their idea came from the Apollo space program. Inventors made a new kind of space boots for the Apollo astronauts. These astronauts were going to walk on the moon, but the moon has a bumpy surface. Astronauts could twist their ankles or fall, so inventors added air pockets to the boots. The air pockets were like padding. The boots protected the astronauts on the moon. Shoe companies heard about the space boots. They decided to use the new idea for running shoes. Today, running shoes protect runners' feet and ankles better. As a result, runners are less likely to get hurt. This space invention solved a problem for people on Earth. So looking at the first paragraph, what could be a cause and effect? If you look in the first couple sentences right there. We could say the cause, running shoes didn't protect runners' feet very well. So what was the effect? Charlotte?
The shoes, the effect of the, so the, the effect was that the runners couldn't run very well either because the shoes weren't that, they didn't work that well.
So, oh, Savannah left. I think Savannah texted me. Hold on. So, oh, Savannah's asking to be let in, but she's not there. So because the running shoes didn't protect the runner's feet very well, shoe companies, the effect is the shoe companies wanted to make something better. If you have something you've made and it's not working very well, you're like, okay, well, let's do something different. All right, well, I'm going to share my screen again. And I guess so cause, the shoes did not protect runners' feet very well. So shoe companies decided to solve the problem and make better shoes. More protective shoes. And then our story begins with the Apollo space mission. All right. So they got the idea from space. Inventors made a new kind of space boots for the Apollo astronauts because they were going to walk on the moon, but the moon had a bumpy surface and they could twist their ankles or fall. So inventors added air pockets to the boots. So we could say because the moon has a bumpy surface, inventors added air pockets to the space boots. I mean, they kept seeing these problems. Like that's another thing we can call cause and effect as problem solution. You see a problem? Okay, well, let's do something to solve it. What is this thing that we can do to respond or react to this? All right. It doesn't say she's in the waiting room. When I go and look.
She said it said United.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it now. Here she comes. Sorry, Savannah. Sorry to disturb you from your nap. Savannah.
Something's wrong with my internet connection.
I know. Do you need a hotspot? Do we need to get you a hotspot from the school? So we can talk about that later. If you need a hotspot, we can let the school know, and then that way you can. All right. So we just said, so the inventors are making the space boots. And because the moon is bumpy and the astronauts could twist their ankles or fall on the bumpy moon, they decided to add air pockets to the boots. Oops. So let me find, there it is. The moon is bumpy and astronauts could fall. So inventors added padding to the space boots. Okay. And then that caused them to be protected. Oh, they added air pockets. Okay. I guess we could say that instead. Added air pockets. Which was like padding. Oh, she left again. Shoe companies heard about the space boots. They decided to use the new idea for running shoes. Okay, so there's our cause and effect. They heard about the space boots. Shoe companies heard about the space boots. And what's the effect? Charlotte?
They decided to try it on running shoes.
They decided to try to put the air pockets in running shoes. All right, there we go. Ta-da! So your story that you are going to read, let me show it to you. It is a nonfiction story.
Which means real.
Yes. It's on the life of Roberto Clemente.
Which is
Can you see it? Okay. Pride of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we can start reading a little bit of it together. On an island called Puerto Rico, where baseball players are as plentiful as tropical flowers in a rainforest, there was a boy who had very little but a fever to play and win at baseball. He had no money for a baseball bat, so he made one from a guava tree branch. His first glove he also made from the cloth of a coffee bean sack. His first baseball field was muddy and crowded with palm trees. For batting practice, he used empty soup cans and hit them farther than anyone else. Soup cans turned into softballs. Softballs turned into baseballs. Little League turned into minor league, turned into winter league, professional baseball in Puerto Rico. So you can tell he really wanted to play baseball because he wasn't going to let the fact that he didn't have baseballs and a glove get in his way.
and a bat.
Yeah, and a bat. He got a tree branch. That was his bat. He made a glove from the cloth of a coffee bean sack, which I don't know how safe that would be. And then he hit soup cans. Here you can see this shows him getting older. There's his tree branch. He played so well, he received an invitation to play in the major leagues in America. What an honor. But the young man was sent to a steel mill town called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where his new team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, was in last place. Now, this was something very strange, being on a losing team. For the young Puerto Rican, everything was strange. Instead of palm trees, he saw smokestacks. Instead of Spanish, he heard English. Instead of being somebody, he was nobody. His first time at bat, he heard the announcer stumble through his Spanish name. Robert, to Clement. It echoed in the near empty stands. Roberto Clemente was his name, and this is pronounced Roberto Clemente. As if to introduce himself, Roberto smacked the very first pitch. But it went right up the infield and into the second baseman's glove. Still, Roberto ran like lightning and beat the throw to first base. The Pittsburgh fans checked their scorecards. Who was this guy, Roberto Clemente? To his new fans in Pittsburgh, Roberto was like a jolt of electricity. He could score from first base on a single. He could hit line drives, bunts towards the home runs. He could hit line drives, bunts, towering home runs, sacrifice flies, whatever was needed. Once he even scored an inside the park grand slam. Do you guys know what that is? So it's when you hit an infield. So grand slam is basically when you hit a home run and the bases are loaded. So it's like the most you can score at one time in baseball. So if the bases are loaded, that means there's 3 people on base, and then you hit a home run. That's 4 points. But inside the park means that he didn't hit the home run over the fence, that he did that within the park. So that's even more difficult. Playing right field, he had no equal. He was always leaping, diving, crashing, rolling. Once trying to catch a pop fly, running full speed, he slammed into the right field wall and fell to the ground. At last, slowly, he lifted his glove. The ball was inside. But it wasn't just how he played. He had style. He was cool. He had this move he did with his neck before each at bat, creaking it one way, then the other. Soon kids who wanted to be just like Roberto were doing it too, twisting their necks the way and this way and that. Roberto did it to ease the pain he felt from playing his heart out in every game. If you don't try as hard as you can, he said, you're wasting your life. Roberto tried so hard, he helped the last place Pirates make it all the way to the World Series where they beat the mighty New York Yankees. After the series, down in the streets of Pittsburgh, Roberto walked along alone among his fans, who were so busy celebrating they didn't even notice him. That didn't bother Roberto. He was happy to feel lost in the crowd of a party he'd helped create. So what happens as a result of Clemente's hard work? See, Athena and Charlotte. I'm just like reading the question out loud. But there was something that would have made Roberto's joy a little sweeter. As much as fans loved him, the newspaper writers did not. When Roberto was in such pain he couldn't play, they called him lazy. They mocked his Spanish accent, and when Roberto got angry, the mainly white newsmen called him a Latino hothead. Roberto swore he would be so good he would have to get the respect he deserved. He would become the greatest all-around baseball player there ever was. At home that Christmas, Roberto went back to the same muddy field he'd played on as a boy. In his pocket was a bag full of bottle caps that he emptied into the hands of some kids. They threw him the caps and he hit each one again and again. There's him with the bottle caps. When he returned to Pittsburgh come spring, baseball looked huge, and he clobbered them as never before. That season, he hit .351, the highest batting average in the National League. And he still did not get the credit he deserved for being so great. It's because I'm black, isn't it? He asked the sneering reporters. It's because I'm Puerto Rican. It's because I am proud. It was starting to seem as if Roberto might never be respected in the big world outside of Pittsburgh and Puerto Rico. And then something happened. The year was 1971. The Pirates were in the World Series again, playing against the Baltimore Orioles, who were favored to win. All around America and Puerto Rico, people sat watching on TV as Roberto put on a one-man show, stealing bases, hitting home runs, playing right field with a fire most fans had never seen before. Finally, it could not be denied. Roberto was the greatest all-around baseball player of his time, maybe of all time. The very next year, he did something few have ever done. During the last game of the season, Roberto walked to the plate, creaked his neck, dug in his stance, stuck his chin toward the pitcher, and walloped a line drive off the center field wall, his 3,000th hit. The crowd cheered, and they wouldn't stop cheering. For many minutes, the players stopped playing, and Roberto stood on second base, amazed how far he had come. So it says Roberto is now one of 11 players in Major League history to get 3,000 or more hits. And yet, when the season was over, the hero returned to the place where his story began, to the land of muddy fields and soup cans and bottle caps, to his homeland of Puerto Rico where he was worshipped. But did he sit around and polish his trophies? No. That rainy New Year's Eve, Roberto sat in the San Juan airport and waited for mechanics to fix the tired old airplane that would take him to Central America. There had been a terrible earthquake, and he wanted to help the victims. The plane would carry food and supplies that Roberto paid for. Right before midnight, he boarded. The rain was really coming down. One of the propellers buzzed loudly. As the plane took off, the engines failed and the plane fell into the ocean. And just like that, it was over. Roberto was gone. How could his story end this way, so suddenly and with such sadness? The story doesn't end here. When someone like Roberto dies, his spirit lives on in the hearts of all he touched. And Roberto's spirit is still growing. It grows in the bats and gloves and arms and legs of all the Latino baseball players who have flooded into the major leagues. His spirit grows in the charities he started for poor people in Puerto Rico, and his spirit is still growing in Pittsburgh, where people who saw him play tell their children and grandchildren of how he used to sparkle, running, diving, firing, game-saving throws from deep right field all the way to home plate, smack, right into the catcher's glove. The end. So I know that's kind of sad. So you will have some, I'll have the graphic organizer up and you'll just fill in some, either the cause or the effect, okay? And I, of course, will put the story up, so if you want to read again.
I love that story. I loved it.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's based on a real person. Roberto Clemente was a real person, you know, and he struggled with racism and having to combat that. People still are, just to get respect. A person shouldn't have to be the best at something to get respect. But even then, he still didn't in places. So hopefully that's something that will change in our lifetime. That's the goal. Because I believe the children are the future. You guys can make a difference. Yay. All right. So that's all for today.